And now I'm very excited to welcome in studio the first presidential candidate that we've had here at the Damage Report, Marianne Williamson. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you so much.
We're very excited to have you here. Now we've talked previously and we've broken down a few of the big issues in your campaign, but a lot has happened since then, and so I'm excited to catch up with you. You brought a copy of your most recent book, Politics of Love: A Handbook for a New American Revolution. Before we get into the candidacy, tell us a little bit about the book. How is this the Handbook for a New American Revolution?
Well, obviously, 2 days ago I was at the funeral in San Diego of Lori Kay down at the Chabad synagogue there. And I saw a tweet the other day. Somebody said, how many lone wolves do there have to be before we realize this is a pack?
Yeah. So
there is obviously a trajectory here, whether it's the Pittsburgh shootings or the Christchurch in New Zealand, the shooting at the mosque, or what happened in San Diego the other day. Hatred has been collectivized. Hatred has been turned into a political tool, whether it's the rise of white supremacy here in this country or the global phenomenon that it is. A president here in the United States who actually sends out dog whistles seeking to actually take advantage of this for his own political purposes. We need to collectivize love. Many more people love than hate. But those who hate are serious, they are convicted, and conviction itself is a force multiplier. So we must become as convicted behind love and mercy and compassion and justice as some people are convicted behind hate. And that means our commitment to love, not only the love of our own children, but children on the other side of town, children on the other side of the world. A realization that the love of our home must include the earth itself, which is our collective home. It means that we must be willing to take a serious moral inventory and to admit the exact nature of our own wrongs and our character defects as a nation when it comes to such things as race, racial reconciliation, reparations, Native Americans. It means dealing with the rescue that is necessary of millions of chronically traumatized American children, 41 million Americans who are hungry, and dealing with the fact that our national security agenda is run more by a machinery having to do with endless preparation for war rather than proactive waging of peace. So I think that when you look at the founding of this country, it was not just a political step forward. It was a spiritual and moral and philosophical step forward, what people can be when we are at our best, and that people should have the opportunity to do that. We have now started capping people's dreams. We need to unleash people's spirit. We need to reclaim ethics and morality and deep humanitarian democratic values at the core of our economy and our governmental functioning. And to admit the level of corruption that has eroded who and what we are. And when we do that, we can change everything. But incremental approaches, like you talk about this candidate or that candidate, tweak a little here, tweak a little there, that's just addressing the symptoms, and that's not addressing the cause.
Yeah. And wow, you raised a lot of points there. And if that is what you want to run on, it's going to be pretty easy to differentiate yourself against the incumbent.
I have to differentiate. It is different.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I mean, like I immediately thought of the news. I think it was either on Monday or late last week that they had considered sending migrant children to Guantanamo Bay to be held there, which is, I think, like if you created an advanced artificial intelligence to come up with the most cruel policy imaginable, it might come up with that if you gave it enough time.
Well, I had not heard that. But that is so deeply horrifying.
As is true of a lot of what goes on in government these days. So I saw a press release that your campaign just very recently put out calling for the establishment of a Department of Domestic Peace Building. What would that department be tasked with doing?
I mentioned before about the millions of American children who are chronically traumatized. We should see large groups of desperate people, whether here in this country or around the world, as a national security risk. Because whenever you have large groups of desperate people, they are more vulnerable to ideological capture by genuinely psychotic forces. This despair must be addressed in a 21st century way. We need wraparound services, we need anti-bullying, we need conflict resolution, we need restorative justice, we need mindfulness in the schools. We have elementary school students in the United States who are on suicide watch. We have children who are traumatized before they even start elementary school, before they even start preschool. What are you going to do with these children? Where do you think this is, what kind of ticking time bomb do you not realize that this is? What are we going to do, just build more prisons? We're talking about how to deal with opioid addiction, but we are actually creating new generations that are at risk for opioid addiction, and most importantly, in terms of the conversation we're having here, at risk for alienation enough to turn them into white supremacists, et cetera.
Yeah.
So we need to become far more whole person, far more integrative, far more holistic, far more 21st century in the way we deal with these things. You can't just take medicine, you have to cultivate health. We can't just have bombs and law enforcement and war. We have to cultivate justice and brotherhood and peace, and that comes from people who are living in ways that do not lead to the kind of dysfunction and pathology that is almost inevitable when there's that much chronic despair and alienation.
And it certainly seems like those sorts of people that you're talking about hold a lot of power in government these days, that have elevated the pursuit of money to be the only moral pursuit. So I'm also curious, one of the top issues that I've seen constantly come up in polling when people prioritize what they're going to be voting based on, healthcare, and there's a lot of candidates in the field right now with some big disagreement in terms of where we need to go when it comes to healthcare. What is your plan?
This is an example of the inadequacy of the dominant political conversation to address the deeper problem. It's all about the superficial. It's all about tweaking the outside. This is the deal with our healthcare. First of all, of course, I believe, progressive that I am, I believe we need a Medicare for all type situation. But we need to go deeper than that. We need to recognize that we don't have a healthcare system in the United States. We have a sickness care system. So Western medicine is very good at treating acute sickness. So our healthcare conversation says, once you get sick, who's going to pay for it? That's just the superficial. We need to deal with how many of our policies, environmental, food policies, agricultural policies, chemical policies, and so forth, including our economic policies and the stress that it produces, actually make it more probable that people are sick. So I want to have policies that make it more probable that people will not be sick to begin with. And that will include, by the way, preventative measures, things that support people in better health, like diet, exercise, and so forth. So with my plan, which would include that, there would be fewer healthcare costs to begin with. This is an example, like I said, this is where this 20th century model, let's just talk about who's going to pay for healthcare. That is inadequate. We need to go way beyond that and talk about root causes.
Thank you very much for watching this clip from the Damage Report. If you liked it, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and ring the bell on YouTube to get notifications of our new videos. And of course, you can catch the full Damage Report live every weekday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific on TYT Network on YouTube TV.